Michaels. And Shawn, it's nice to have you here tonight. It's a little hot.
Yes, it's a little hot in here, but it's good to be here. This place is packed, and it's getting more crowded every Monday, boy. These people are out here waiting for the matches, and they're going to be out in a little while.
Well, Shawn, on our first close-up, we'd like to find a little bit out about Shawn Michaels besides what he does in the ring. I know you made your home here in San Antonio, and how did you ever get into San Antonio?
Well, my father is military, former military, now retired, and we did a lot of traveling and finally ended up in San Antonio, and this is where I retired, and this is where I've stayed.
Where was he stationed?
He was stationed out at Randolph Air Force Base, and that's where I attended school out there.
I know you went to Randolph Air Force Base about 6 years, I believe. Of course, in your senior high years, you played football.
That's right. Randolph Rohawks were a real successful team. They're small, but successful.
What classification did they play in? Do you remember when you were there?
When I was there, we were 3A, and now I believe they've dropped to 2A.
Of course, they've changed all those classifications. How successful was the Randolph football team with Shawn Michaels playing?
Very successful. Randolph, the Rohawks were always successful every year, and when I played, we won district all 3 years. I was on varsity, and we went about to quarterfinals, I think, was the farthest we got when I was there.
What position?
I was linebacker and offensive tackle.
Well, there's a lot of noise in the background. They're getting anxious for matches to start. Shawn, speaking of matches, how did you get into professional wrestling?
Well, as everybody knows, I was trained by Jose Lothario, and he trained me and started me out, and he and Fred Barron were the ones that helped me start.
Well, how did you become interested in wrestling at all?
Well, wrestling, my father was a former amateur wrestler. He wrestled at the University of Iowa, which is world renowned for their wrestling, and that is where I learned most of my amateur background was from my father.
Well, after you started with Jose Lothario, about how long was it before you decided to make the big step and get into professional wrestling ring?
Well, I thought I was ready right away, and Jose toned me down a little bit and said, let's train for a while. And I trained for about a year before my first wrestling match.
Well, I know your first professional wrestling match wasn't in San Antonio. You might tell us where it happened.
It was in Lake Charles, Louisiana, against Art Cruz, and that's where I stayed for about 6 months. It was the Mid-South area.
Well, after you left the Mid-South, you journeyed your way up the Mississippi River, I guess, and ended up around St. Louis.
Yeah, up in the Midwest. I did most of my learning and paid my dues in Mid-South. Went up to Kansas City and St. Louis and was very successful, and got Rookie of the Year up there. That's something I'm real proud about. And that's where I refined most of my wrestling skills was in St. Louis.
What other cities did you wrestle when you were over in St. Louis?
Well, we were in Kansas City, St. Louis, Des Moines, Iowa, over in Illinois, and all the major cities are in there.
Now you're back home, San Antonio. What brings you back to Texas?
Well, being only 20 years old, I have to admit I did miss home a little bit, my friends. But most of all, I wanted to come back and show the people that I could run with the Alma Drills and the Black Gormans and everyone else.
I know Fred Barron, the promoter of Texas All-Star Wrestling, instrumental in getting you started, you said, and he's glad to have you back on Texas All-Star Wrestling.
That's right, and I'm glad to be here. All the top competition is coming to Texas All-Star Wrestling, and I want to be right up there with them.
Well, Shawn, coming up in just a few moments, in fact, after our interview here, is our main event today. Chavo Guerrero, Al Madril. How about your outlook on that match?
I'll tell you, Steve, to be perfectly honest, 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have cared. I'd have wished they got in there and tear each other up, but I feel like Chavo Guerrero has finally come. He's back to the Chavo Guerrero that I used to watch when I was here in San Antonio, the former junior heavyweight champion. And what they did to his father, Mr. Gory Guerrero, was one of the most despicable things I've ever seen. And I think with that, the Chavo finally saw the right way to go. And now I hope that Al Madril gets his.
And now, your opinion on the match, you feel like, who's going to win?
There's no question. Chavo Guerrero is one of the best. I've said it before, I've wrestled the man. And he is one of the best wrestlers in the world today. And I have to go with Chavo Guerrero.
Well, you can hear the boos in the background. That's because Al Madril is coming out, and he's going to walk by us. He'll be getting into the ring. Shawn, we want to thank you for your time here on Texas All-Star Wrestling Close-Up.